What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we got a blog post outlining a bunch of changes and improvements that are coming to Ricochet Anti-Cheat with the launch of Black Ops 6. So in today's video, I wanted to go through some of the highlights of this and then share some of my thoughts on the whole anti-cheat situation, including something that Call of Duty also acknowledged yesterday. Apparently, there was a method of getting legitimate players permanently banned from the game as if they were cheating, even though they weren't. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit as well toward the end of the video. But let's first focus on the new information we got with this blog post. And one of the first important things they pointed out in this blog post is just the fact that they haven't been talking to the community enough about anti-cheat, and they need to be doing this on a more frequent basis. So I suspect we will be seeing more blog posts in the future as more updates come out, more so than what we've been seeing over the past year or so. Then they also go on to just restate that cheating also includes things like account sharing to unlock gear, which I know many streamers do, so when they do get on stream, they have everything unlocked and they can just play the game. Also, using software to get access to items you haven't earned or purchased, so unlock tools, and then also account boosting. So they're not just talking about aimbots and wall hacks here, they're also talking about these other methods that they define as cheating. And then on top of that, they shared their big new metric that they're aiming for when it comes to anti-cheat, and this is they want to catch and remove cheaters within 1 hour of them being in their first match. So they have created a bunch of new tech and improvements for their anti-cheat, and they actually tried some of this out for the beta for Black Ops 6. And they acknowledged that in the first weekend of the beta, they were stress testing the new anti-cheat system, and apparently it came in a little bit too hot, and it ended up banning a bunch of legitimate players. They mentioned that they recognized those errors, they immediately made adjustments to correct course, and I believe they had that resolved for the second weekend of the beta, since in the first week I saw tons of comments with people saying that they got unfairly banned, and we can now see they weren't just making that up, that was an issue on Ricochet's end. Whereas for the second weekend, I wasn't seeing any of those comments appear, so it does look like they got that worked out from week 1 to week 2, but obviously still very frustrating if you did happen to get banned unfairly in that first week. Now going beyond that, they shared a little bit of data that they had with their anti-cheat system. In the first week of the beta, cheaters were able to complete around 10 multiplayer matches during weekend 1 on average before being removed, whereas for the second weekend, after they made some adjustments, they cut that time in half to just 5 matches. And that achieves that goal that they were aiming for, which is removing cheaters from the game and banning them within 1 hour of them playing their first match. And on top of that, they stated that 25% of all Weekend 2 bans happened during the first match that a cheater ever played. So it seems like it was picking up on at least a lot of them almost instantly and getting them banned from the game. Taking that a step further, they also mentioned they stopped over 12,000 confirmed cheating accounts before they ever saw the inside of a match. So that's got to be through the kernel level anti-cheat. And seeing this data shows that Ricochet was absolutely doing at least something throughout the beta of Black Ops 6. And while of course I'm sure many cheaters still slip through the cracks, and I'm sure some of you guys out there did experience some cheating in the Black Ops 6 beta, it does appear that Ricochet is at least not useless, and it was working pretty hard to try to get rid of those cheaters, if you believe these numbers. And that's one big thing about this topic, is the trust in the community is very low right now when it comes to Ricochet, it seems, just based on everything I see online anytime Ricochet anti-cheat comes up. And therefore, I'm sure no matter what this blog says, and no matter how much they try to talk up how good Ricochet is, there's going to be so many people watching this video right now that are like, no, this is all BS, it doesn't actually work. In either case, let's get into the list of updated tech that they've outlined. And the first one is an updated version of their kernel level driver, which will be going live on October 25th, so with the launch of Black Ops 6. And that will also include Warzone, so you don't have to wait for the integration with Season 1 for this new anti-cheat tech to go live for Warzone. Also at that time, all mitigations including damage shield, disarm, splat, hallucination, and others will be live. So those are real-time mitigations that will activate on cheating accounts that are designed to prevent them from ruining the game for other players while they collect more data on those people. Now on top of that, and I would say most interestingly out of this, they're implementing new machine learning behavioral systems focused on the speed of detections. So they're actually using machine learning to monitor the behavior of players in games in order to detect any fishy gameplay through that, including new detection models to analyze gameplay to combat aimbots. And in my eyes, this is the future of anti-cheat, because traditional methods of anti-cheat, even kernel level anti-cheat, are already becoming outdated, and there's already workarounds to all of this. But one thing that can be difficult to hide is the actual in-game behavior of people that are cheating. Because inherently, with them cheating, their behaviors are generally going to be quite different from the behaviors of players that are not cheating. And if they have to adapt to this and start behaving more and more and more like regular players that aren't cheating, then at the very least, that cuts the effectiveness of the cheating down significantly. In saying that though, there is one big concern with this style of anti-cheat, especially early on when it's still in its infancy, and this is the potential for false positives, where it detects people as cheating based on their behavior, even if they're not actually cheating. But continuing on with the list here, they mentioned there's going to be upgrades when ranked play launches as well that will include continuous examination to determine if leaderboard placements are accurate. And I feel like this one is long overdue. It is often so easy for anybody to just look at the leaderboards and be like, yep, that guy is 100% cheating. There's no way that you could possibly be at that level and have those stats without cheating. And yet you'll see that person at number 1 on the leaderboard for weeks, if not months on end. So I'm glad they're finally looking into that as well. And then finally with this list, they just mentioned for Warzone specifically, they've already deployed new mitigations to interrupt cheaters, and there will be more information coming on that. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the new information they shared with this blog post. However, I feel like some of the final stuff they mentioned here is important to get out as well. And this is basically just reiterating the fact that this is a constant cat and mouse game. And with this, it's a constant back and forth, and they mentioned in the blog post, it's a little like battling on the bad guy's home turf, because it's their machine and their code. So you constantly have to be reacting to and responding to the cheat developers because they will always find a new way around the anti-cheat. And I think this is a really important topic that not a lot of people understand or fully grasp. I don't think it completely excuses an anti-cheat system that's obviously just not working at the level that it should be working at. But it's also something I think a lot of people don't really understand is there is no such thing as just a perfect anti-cheat. You just implement it and cheats are gone forever and it will never be possible to cheat in your game again. There is a ton of money to be made by developing cheat software, and with that incentive in place, there will always be people that find workarounds, and therefore they're always going to have to be reacting to those workarounds. And that leaves us with the final note they mentioned in the blog post here, and with this they say, we can't tell you cheaters will disappear forever because of the tech we're preparing for launch, but they will use every tool they can to keep fighting to deliver a fair and fun experience, and if the right tool doesn't exist, they'll make it themselves. Then they reiterate that anti-cheat is a constant effort, and they're always working to stop and thwart the efforts of cheaters, and it's an effort they're deeply committed to through and through. So there we go, that's the blog post. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about my thoughts on this. And the big thing to point out here is I do feel they have lost a lot of the community's trust with Ricochet. And sharing all of this information and trying to explain the situation and everything, it just isn't going to get through to much of the community because that trust has been lost. And I think part of this is just inherently how this situation works. As hard as they may be working on the back end to detect cheaters and ban cheaters, if even just one cheater slips through the cracks and you run into that cheater in the game and he ruins your gameplay experience for that game, that will immediately erode any confidence you may have had toward that anti-cheat system, despite the fact that you're not seeing how many times it prevented that situation from happening. And I do think that's a tough situation to resolve, because on the player's end, it's very justified. You ran into a cheater, they ruined your experience. Where's the anti-cheat? They keep telling me this anti-cheat is in place and it's really good and bans a lot of cheaters, but obviously it's not working. It's broken. There is no anti-cheat in this game because I just ran into a cheater. Whereas from the Ricochet team's perspective, they see the data on the thousands and thousands of accounts that they've stopped from cheating, many of which they've stopped before they even got into a match. And there's so much going on the back end that nobody ever sees. And all they do end up seeing when it comes to the cheating situation are the cheaters that do slip through the cracks and ruin their experience. So it's a tricky situation. I definitely see both sides of that. At the end of the day, even though no anti-cheat is perfect, it does appear, at least from the discourse online, I haven't really experienced any of this firsthand because I play on console and I often play with crossplay disabled. Plus, I don't play Warzone, which is where most of the cheating takes place. So I honestly haven't seen a single case of an obvious cheater, at least in the past year with Modern Warfare 3. I haven't seen a single one, but I also acknowledge my situation is a bit different from many others that play on PC and play Warzone or ranked play, for instance, where the cheaters tend to be at their worst. In either case, based on the discourse that I'm seeing online, it does appear there's still a lot of room for improvement with Ricochet Anti-Cheat, and I really hope we do see some noticeable improvement with these new steps that they're taking for the Black Ops 6. Because as we've seen in the past, it's one thing to have a blog post talking about this stuff, and it's another thing to actually notice improvement in the game when it comes to anti-cheat. But speaking of the lack of community trust, yesterday was a great example of why there's so little trust in the community as well. And this is due to a tweet that came from COD Updates. And in this, they mentioned they identified and disabled a workaround to the detection system that impacted a small number of legitimate player accounts. So essentially, this workaround was allowing cheaters to get legitimate players banned from the game, even though they weren't actually cheating. And the thing is, previously, it was always stated that if you were permanently banned from the game, that was 100% confirmation that somebody cheated on your account, and there was just no denying it at that point. I know for many cases of the false bans, it was a case of somebody taking over your account and gaining access to your account and then selling it to people that would cheat on that account. That was actually quite a common thing that was happening. But even in those cases, there was at least confidence that somebody cheated on that account, whether that was you or someone that stole your account. Whereas with this update we got yesterday, this shows that that wasn't necessarily the case, and it was possible to get permanently banned even if no one ever cheated on your account. Now, they mentioned this was a small number, but they didn't provide that number. We don't know how many people this actually was. Like, as a small number, like dozens of players or thousands of players. Within the context of the Call of Duty player base, you could call thousands of players a small number of legitimate player accounts. But we really don't know, and it is stuff like this that erodes the confidence in the anti-cheat system. And since we're on the topic of this, there's still another huge issue that I don't feel they've addressed properly here, and this is shadow bans. This has been a continuous issue for years now, where many players end up in a shadow ban loop, where they are suspected of cheating but not confirmed to be cheating. And as far as the community is aware, this is due to excess reports. So if you get reported enough, you end up in a shadow ban, which means you can still technically log on and play the game, but it puts you into shadow ban lobbies with other people that are shadow banned, many of which are actual cheaters, because they have been reported a bunch, and while they're being investigated, they get quarantined into these lobbies. But effectively what that means is during that time, the game is essentially unplayable for you. And again, this is before the system has actually confirmed that you are cheating in the game. So many innocent players end up getting shadow banned, and then effectively they can't really play the game, even though they've done nothing wrong, until that shadow ban clears. And then the bigger issue with this is once that clears, oftentimes they end up right back in a shadow ban after just playing a couple games. And that process just repeats over and over and over again. And that's obviously a huge issue because there are many legitimate players that have never actually been found to be cheating that end up in this loop and therefore can't play the game that they paid full price for. I'm hoping this is the year where something can change when it comes to this shadow ban loop, but I wouldn't hold my breath on this one. We've been outspoken about this for years now. We've brought it up directly to developers at the studios. As creators, many of us have done everything we can do when it comes to this shadow ban system because we hate it just as much as anybody else, but it seems nothing really changes on this end. And with that, that's a good place to leave this video, and this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What are your overall thoughts on the anti-cheat updates that they've outlined in this blog post? And how are you feeling about Ricochet Anti-Cheat in general? What has your experience been like with cheating in Call of Duty? And if you are going to share that experience, please let me know. Are you playing Warzone? Are you playing multiplayer, console, PC? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.